Welcome to the Endless Frontiers, your home for all things science, fiction, and science fiction. I'm your host, Jed Morgan, and Starfleet Academy Episode 5 is out, so let's talk about it. In a show that's already defining itself as one of the worst pieces of modern television, it's actually surprising that they continue to outdo themselves, making a worse product as the weeks go on. This latest episode is by far the worst one we've gotten so far. It is rife with cringe humor and modernism to a degree that just doesn't feel like a future, dystopian, utopian, anything like that. It doesn't feel like the future. It feels like modern 2026 with the veneer of futurism, just a little bit more advanced technology, and that's where the futurism ends. It doesn't feel like it's 1,000 years in the future. This episode follows Sam, the artificial holographic life form that is a cadet at Starfleet Academy, and her journey is stupid. There's very little that happens in this episode. It poses itself as the character-driven episode, focusing on the mystery of what happened to Benjamin Sisko from Deep Space Nine. And yet it offers very little substance to the audience to understand Sam's character, to understand the broader universe, and of course, to understand the incredible story that is Benjamin Sisko's. Cringe humor is absolutely the focus of this episode, because Sam suddenly has the ability to break the fourth wall and add in UI elements to the audience, including random musical notes and definitions written on screen, because these writers truly believe their audience is so moronic that they don't know what the word emissary is. I'm not kidding. They literally write the definition on screen to make sure you understand what the word emissary is, even though they, of course, define it in context, but they have a low opinion of their audience because they have low intelligence themselves. The old adage that I keep bringing up with Starfleet Academy is a written work is only as smart as its dumbest writer, and they truly are moronic in the writer's room of Starfleet Academy. So, of course, they assume everyone else to be at their level of intelligence, yet they assume that they're vastly more intelligent than the average human being, so they need to dumb things down a little bit for their plebeian audience. It's insulting, and there really is no better way to describe this episode than insulting. Insulting to the intelligence of its audience, insulting to Star Trek fans who love Benjamin Sisko and Deep Space Nine, and insulting to anyone who has a humor beyond the capacity of a 12-year-old boy. Fart jokes are the epitome of Star Trek humor in 2026. Surface level potty humor is the best that they can come up with to make the audience laugh. It's quite embarrassing. There is very little else that I can say about this episode without diving into spoilers. Your headline for it, if you don't want spoilers, is that it is cringe humor made by people with the intelligent capacity of 12-year-olds for people with the humor level of 12-year-olds. Done so poorly that even 12-year-olds won't enjoy this. This show is truly made for no one. So now let's jump into the spoilers of Starfleet Academy Episode 5, right after a word from our sponsor, Plotter. This video is sponsored by Plotter. Every writer knows the drill. Staring at a blank page, characters ghosting you mid-plot, timelines unraveling like a bad sweater. Then I found Plotter, my plotting lifeline. Visual timelines that snap into place, drag and drop scenes to tame the wildest arcs, character sheets to keep everyone on track. I've used Plotter to create a series bible, multi-track storylines, and lore documents that make world building a breeze. Use my link or scan the QR code today to get Plotter for life with a single payment of $150. Let Plotter help you conquer your stories. Link in the description. This episode follows Sam, the holographic cadet at Starfleet Academy, who is sent as an emissary from her planet of holographic life forms to the Academy to study organic life forms, to try to figure out if organic life forms can be trusted, if holographic beings can reincorporate themselves into the broader galaxy. Where have I seen this before? Well, of course I've seen it in Star Trek before, but most recently, this is literally the same story as Isaac from the Orville, like beat for beat. Of course, with a comedic veneer, but it's still an emissary sent from a man-made species that have become isolationists that are testing the bounds of their relationship with organic beings for the first time in centuries. It is identical to Isaac's story, but with none of the depth and emotionalism that define that character. Isaac is a phenomenally written character with a great story, especially Identity Part 1 and Part 2 in Orville Season 2. That's better Star Trek than we've gotten in over 20 years at this point. And they're cheaply ripping off what was originally a parody of Star Trek. They become a parody of a parody at Star Trek these days. But for Sam, the holographic makers, as she calls them, are really pushing her to show some progress in this experiment that she's running at Starfleet Academy. They're wanting more information out of her. They're wanting her to focus away from frivolous activities like musical classes. They want her to understand organics quickly so that they can make their decision about whether or not to reincorporate with organics. My question is, these are holographic life forms. There's no date on their lifespan as proven by the Doctor in this very show, who is a holographic life form who has existed for almost 1,000 years at this point. So lifespan isn't an issue with holographic beings, and yet in only 200 or so years, these holographic beings have entirely forgotten everything that they know about organics, with access to all databases and a memory, assumedly, of their creators. That breaks the premise for me and ruins any possible chance of immersion. I don't buy Sam's mission as an emissary as being important because it doesn't make sense for these holographic life forms to not know anything about humans and other life forms in the galaxy. At least with the Orville, those artificial beings like Isaac had only interacted with their maker race, whom they, spoiler alert, exterminated. So they'd never interacted with the people of the Union or any of these other species. They needed to know what other organics were like. However, these holographic beings were confirmed to be made by humans several centuries ago, so they already had interactions with the Federation. There's no reason they should have forgotten that. After a rather stern talking to from her makers, Sam is trying to enroll in Understanding the Unexplainables class at Starfleet Academy. She goes to talk to the professor. Apparently, the semester's almost over, and they're in the middle of midterms. Yes, because midterms happen at the end of a semester. I know these people went to college because everyone does these days, but they clearly didn't pay attention to know when midterms actually happen. But the professor's obviously like, hey, it's way too late for you to join my class, whatever. And they make this weird joking deal that if Sam can solve the mystery of Benjamin Sisko, someone who she just heard about because of a poster basically on the wall of the classroom, she can join the class even though it's late. So Sam dedicates herself to solving the mystery of what happened to Benjamin Sisko, the main character of the Deep Space Nine Star Trek TV show. Now, I haven't seen Deep Space Nine in a very long time. I'm about to do it in my rewatch of Star Trek right now, so I don't remember the finer details of the end of his story. But it is a beloved story for so many Star Trek fans, and the ambiguity of his ending is essential to that story. So initially, I was very concerned about how they were going to address this huge ambiguous thing in the Star Trek universe. And they don't desecrate Benjamin Sisko, they don't mock Benjamin Sisko, they don't really do anything with him. Thankfully, they just focus on his more human side, his relationship to his son, and that's fine. It's not done with any talent, but at least they didn't destroy Sisko, and that was what I was concerned about more than anything else. So that is a slight positive in favor of this episode. However, they mock a lot of the religious elements that make his story important. Sam straight up goes to a bunch of Bajorans and says, hey, what actually happened to Sisko in concrete terms, not with any of this nonsense with the prophets or anything like that. She continually makes fun of religion. This episode feels anti-religious, which you don't need to be because there is proof of the prophets in Deep Space Nine, at least of their influence. You don't have to say that they're gods or they created the universe, that there are just these beings that are beyond human understanding, beyond human power, who made Sisko, who made all these events in Deep Space Nine transpire the way that they did. There is actual evidence of them, so you don't need to mock Bajoran religion or turn it into a weird parody of Islam. Sisko's treated like Muhammad. They've straight up banned photos of him just like Muhammad. They're very inconsistent with their religious metaphors because they still hold up Sisko to be a godlike being and a prophet and magical. Oh my god, we must bow to Sisko. Sisko is the Sisko. And that's still the case throughout the entire episode. But everything he represented with the prophets of Bejor and stuff like that is mocked. So is Sisko's religious nature only important in so much that it serves nostalgia, but they still want to be anti-religious? It's contradictory and further destroys the possibility of immersion. So Sam dives into what happened to Benjamin Sisko, going to museum exhibits about his life, reading up on his son, latching onto any information about Benjamin Sisko that she can, falling in love with the idea that he's an emissary for the prophets, just like she's an emissary for her holographic makers. Very little is learned in this story. She learns very little of substance. She learns that, Sisko grew tomatoes for his jumbo, that he loved his son. All very obvious things that shouldn't be moving the story. As I mentioned earlier, she called Bajoran religion nonsense, and therefore got called into Holly Hunter's office for a slight scolding. And of course, Holly Hunter doesn't care. She's not a disciplinarian. She has no moral backbone whatsoever. So she's like, yeah, totally fine that you grabbed a student's ear, tugged on it, and said, hey, give me proof that Bajoran religion isn't nonsense. You have a little bit of a stronger conversation after an offense like that. You don't need to get punished for something like that, but you need to have a talk. Instead, she's just like, you're here to dream for your entire species. Other kids who come here, they dream their own dreams, but you dream other dreams because you can't dream your own dreams because you're holographic. It's a nonsensical word salad. Sam's not there to dream for holographic beings. She's there in an analytical sense, not a metaphysical one or a hopeful one or anything like that. Holly Hunter is really a terrible character, and I stand by my position that she's the absolute worst part of this entire show. Here we come to what I think is the worst part of this episode. After a little bit more information that the other students uncover about Sisko, they find out that when he was a cadet, there was a bar nearby that he would frequent. So they go out to the bar. Caleb edits Sam to be able to experience drunkenness. She gets drunk and starts partying, and somehow that's supposed to help her connect with Sisko. I don't know how that's supposed to work. It's entirely illogical. She's a very poor artificial being. What this sequence highlights is the modernism of this show. If you went to a disco club of 50 years ago and compared it to a nightclub of 2026, the difference would be night and day. They're so different that the comparison would be jarring. That's only 50 years. Now, a nightclub in 2026 compared to a nightclub in the 31st century is virtually identical. There's not even a veneer of technology difference. They're straight up got the same strobe lights, the same type of music, the same type of dancing. At the beginning of the episode, Sam is dancing in her room for no reason right before being praised as she walked down the hallway and worshipped by all the other cadets. That's just an aside. But all the dancing is stuff that you could find in 2026. All the music is the same. All the scenery is the same. They literally filmed at a high school gym a few episodes ago. They clearly just filmed at a modern nightclub in this episode. There's nothing about this show that says the future. I miss Star Trek when it felt different, felt aspiring. Even in the original series, when there's a little bit of campiness, you still felt like this was beyond our current world. This is something that, yes, has the roots of our current world. You can see little threads of connection, but you're not going to be confused when you walk into a bar in the Star Trek universe and think, wow, this is Earth in 2026 or 1960. You really thought, wow, this is somewhere different. I don't have a great comparison for what this is like. And it made the whole show feel unique, feel grand, feel separated from ourselves. That can't be said for Starfleet Academy. It is near beat for beat our world. And that erodes the whole point of Star Trek, of having a future to aspire to. They're so obsessed with dystopianism and incapable of creativity to extrapolate what society will evolve into in 1,000 years that they have to mirror what they know. And what they know is modern crap. It's so modern, in fact, that the bartender of this nightclub is a literal drag queen. And there's a gay romance blossoming in the nightclub between the Klingon, Jaden, and the white guy from the War College. Exactly something you would expect from a San Francisco nightclub in 2026, not a cadet bar in the 31st century. What's the point of setting this in the future if it 100% represents our modern world? This nightclub scene ends with Sam starting an actual bar fight with the War College cadets. They get thrown out, they get reprimanded briefly by the doctor, and sent away, whatever. After that, Sam returns to the professor of the Unsolvable Mysteries class, reporting everything that she's learned, which is, being an emissary sucks. You have to give up everything that you are, everything that you love. Your life just sucks being an emissary. You have no free will. The professor responds by giving Sam an unpublished work by Sisko's son, which is a biography of his father. Sam goes out into the atrium to read it and imagines a hologram of Jake Sisko using the same actor as Deep Space Nine, who gives her an imaginary pep talk which solves everything. She takes the backbone that imaginary Jake gives her to go stand up to her makers and say, yeah, leave me alone. I'll contact you. Bye. And that's how her dramatic arc in this episode ends, hanging up the phone in dramatic fashion. When Sam returns the book to the professor, it's revealed that this professor is Dax. Jadzia Dax's symbiote has survived for 1,000 years. I'm not an expert on Trill physiology, but I don't think they can live for quite that long. That's just me, though. You please correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong. But it makes the world and this universe feel so small when connections like this can be made so easily. At the beginning of the episode, they mention there are literally thousands of species on thousands of different worlds that have been discovered in the Star Trek timeline, which includes trillions of life forms. The galaxy is vast, and it's populated by a horde of individuals. Yet modern Star Trek, with connections to previous people like Sisko and Dax being made at the drop of a hat, makes everything feel so small. That, combined with the utter modernism, makes the show feel like it's taking place in our own backyard. It destroys scale. It relies on coincidence. I hate that Dax came back. She was my favorite character of Deep Space Nine, and yes, it is still too soon to talk about what happened to Jadzia. But her just happening to be here, happening to have a copy of Jake's book, and being Sam's professor is so unlikely that it's impossible for me to be invested in what's going on. The world building is shot. It's flat and uninteresting. This isn't a three-dimensional universe that they've built. It is a flat piece of cardboard with cave drawings scribbled on it. Thankfully, though, it ended there, and we were given another brief respite of a week until the next episode of Starfleet Academy. Before I finish, I just want to rapid fire some of the terrible, terrible jokes that were in this episode, because this was the comedic relief episode after all. There's a whole sequence at the very beginning of the episode where Sam kind of does a day in the life, where she's walking down the hallways, everyone's bowing to her, having secret handshakes and nicknames for her. She's dancing, she's got swag, listening to modern rap, and oh my god. And she watches Fish Boy get challenged to eat this mashy food, which includes bananas, and apparently bananas make him throw up. But after eating bananas, apparently it makes him vomit, and isn't it funny? He vomits glitter, guys! And we just see Fish Boy gurgitating glitter in clumps. They think that's hilarious. And it doesn't end there. There's random bubbles that are around popping. There's a literal light bulb that goes off above Sam's head at one point. It's infantile. At one point, she catches Caleb staring at Princess Mulvaney from across the atrium. He's got a giant pepper this big, and he's just staring at her across the room. And Sam mentions that blood flow is going to his penis while he's eating a phallic-shaped object and staring at a woman creepily. That's the level of humor we're at in Starfleet Academy. Throughout all of this, which I haven't mentioned thus far, Chancellor Aki is working with the Dean of the War College to prepare for some important meeting with a foreign dignitary that includes fire eels in the ocean for security in San Francisco. That doesn't make any sense. And to prepare, Aki sets up a formal dinner with the Doctor and Tig Notaro's professor character, where there's all this pomp and circumstance. The B-plot doesn't matter in any way, shape, or form, but in the joke section, it is riddled with cringe humor, including references to the plants that Aki pushed her cadets to plant in the War College dorms are in a farty phase. Don't you like the farty plant? And later on, there's a literal farty fish on the table, and everybody but the dean of the War College is like, oh, that's the funniest thing ever. Aren't we so hilarious? Aki is a child. She literally psychs out a handshake with the dean of the War College. She is in no position to be in charge. She's still laying everywhere, lounging everywhere, taking everything as unprofessionally as possible. And the humor doesn't end there. Throughout the episode, Caleb is trying to edit Sam's mainframe to help her be able to taste food. And during it, there's this awful sequence where he keeps trying to change her mainframe a little bit, and it's making her wear a big scarf, or listen to marching music, or her hair's purple. It's a bunch of random shit that's meant to make you roll on the ground, clutching your hip, dying of laughter. But it's not that funny. To end with, there's one last joke delivered by Stephen Colbert's voiceover PA character, where he says, hey, we're going on an expedition to the woods tomorrow. If you want to be there, it's at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, and we'll check out some morning wood. And he literally laughs. Yeah, we got a morning wood joke as well. With that, my review is over. Those are my thoughts on the latest episode of Starfleet Academy. I truly believe this is the worst one yet, because so very little happened. There was damage done to Deep Space Nine, and they thought they were the funniest, most intelligent people ever in the Starfleet Academy writer's room. I don't know how I'm going to continue through another 5 episodes of this. We're only halfway through, and it's still managing to be worse than the week before. But with that, if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. The more support this channel gets, the closer we are to publishing the Endless Frontier novels. Until then, have a stellar day. And stay curious.
There isn't time for an alternative.
Venturing out into the unknown doesn't have to be frightening.
To push the boundaries of the known with the never conceived of.
Today the world will remember who we are and never forget it.